Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to My Time, My Life with Trinette Faint. On this season of my podcast, I'll be talking to a variety of people, from creative entrepreneurs to business owners to writers to entertainers and others, about being bold and courageous, overcoming obstacles, and taking risks, all in the name of chasing dreams and building a career. I hope their stories will inspire you on your own journey. Thanks for listening. My guest today is Natalie Van Doren, a writer, director, and assistant director in film and television in Los Angeles. Natalie has directed multiple network episodes of the Nickelodeon show Side Hustle and That Girl Lele for Nickelodeon and Netflix with famed producer Will Packer. After graduating from Colorado State University, Natalie moved to LA and began her career in the entertainment business as an assistant at ICM Talent Agency. While there, she worked with Francis Ford Coppola, Baz Luhrmann, Luc Besson, and others. Soon after, she was accepted into the prestigious Directors Guild of America training program. While in the program, Natalie produced and directed her first short film, The SharkTank Redemption, a parody of the Shawshank Redemption, which was purchased by HBO and aired on HBO and Cinemax for 6 years. Natalie has since gone on to direct the second unit of CSI Miami, and she was a DGA trainee, Directors Guild of America trainee on Ocean's 11, and she was also the assistant director on CSI, The West Wing, ER, and many more productions. She recently finished a graphic novel called Infinite, which she wrote with her brother, writer Doug Van Doren. Hey, Natalie, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Trinette. Thank you. How are you?
Oh, hanging in. Thanks so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join my podcast. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's just start from the beginning here. Had you always wanted to direct when you were growing up in Colorado? And who were some of your favorite directors at that time?
When I was a kid, I always wanted to be an architect. And then in 8th grade, I was like 13 or something like that. I had written a mystery story for my English class. And my English teacher really loved it. And she encouraged me to make it into a film. So she had the whole class just be my performers. And we went to a mansion there in Colorado where I'm from, and they let us have the location for free. And we just filmed like a goofy little mystery, but I fell in love with being a director then, and I sort of changed my mind. Wow. And so that's kind of where it started. And so I wanted to go to film school and move to LA. And so, yeah, that's how it began. It's kind of when I was a teenager.
Oh, wow. That is awesome. Did you have any connections when you moved to LA from Colorado? And if you go on, sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go on.
My biggest connection was my brother, who is 3 years older than me and was living in LA and working at ICM. Okay. So I knew him, but my first job before ICM, I actually had an internship where I worked for a big producer, John Davis, who produced movies like Grumpy Old Men and Predator and Waterworld. And I had applied for that internship just sort of on my own. And so I came out for a summer in college and I worked doing that. And so I kind of found that on my own. But my brother was like the one person I knew before I moved out. So that was kind of nice to have one person. You know.
Yeah, I mean, LA can be so disorienting and jarring if you don't know anybody. So it's really great you had some support out there to help you get going.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for that, and very close with my brother. So it's good to have somebody to like be like a rock for you when you live in a city this big.
Yeah. I guess it's safe to assume that because your brother was there, he helped you build your confidence to jump in a business that is quite often unkind to newcomers.
Yes, I think I don't know if I would have felt comfortable moving here if he hadn't been here. It was nice to have somebody, and then he already had friendships, so it was kind of easy to make friends, like
Mm-hmm.
because he knew a lot of people, and then he was actually working at ICM, so it helped me kind of get my foot in the door there. It wasn't a job that I necessarily loved, but I learned a whole lot, and I'm glad I did it. And I
Oh,
made
yeah.
friendships I still have to this day that you know. It's just good in the film business to kind of know how to do everything that you can. So that was
Yeah.
kind of a good starting point for me.
Yeah. I know like working in a talent agency can be a pretty good route to starting in the entertainment business out there. Um, how was your experience working there? I know it could be terrifying, it could be fabulous, like all
Um,
the rest.
I would say that I was fairly lucky because I had two really um, amazing bosses. Like my
Mm-hmm.
first boss, her name was Trisha Davies. She ran the book department. So what I was an assistant and I didn't have to go through the mailroom. I just was at a desk, but we would get in novels from really big authors, like Toni Morrison and Tobias
Mm,
Wolff, like really huge authors before they were ever published like to the public, and we were trying to sell them to become movies. And so I was
wow.
reading the best books, and my boss was like the nicest woman. And so I for like a first year of working there, I really loved it, and it was great. And then I transferred to another agent. His name's Robert Newman, and he's a very big agent. He's now at William Morris, but he repped only directors and really big directors. And he's
Mm-hmm.
sort of well known for making kind of small directors into huge directors.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, he repped like Wes Craven. I mean, Wes Craven was already big, but he repped like Greg Berlanti, who is, a showrunner and does huge shows now, but really he like was just starting when I met him, and Robert Rodriguez, and then he repped huge people like Francis Ford Coppola and Luc Besson and Baz Luhrmann. So I got to like meet a lot of great directors, and my boss
Mm-hmm.
was a really nice guy. And I mean, agents are a different kind of breed. I'm not an agent. And I didn't want to be one, but I learned a lot. And I thought like ICM was probably a very difficult place to work, especially at the time. I was going through a lot of shifts, and
Yeah.
right around the time I was there, it split like half of ICM left and went to William Morris. So there was a lot of like turmoil happening, but I feel like
Right.
I was pretty lucky overall to
Yeah.
have the experiences I had and to learn from the bosses that I had. So that was really great. Because I have
I
friends
mean,
who are working for people who are a lot more difficult. So
that seems pretty emblematic of the entertainment business as a whole. You could get super lucky and work for someone great, but the environment itself could be so chaotic, but
yeah,
you're basically in a good spot, and other people around you could be working for people not so great. So it's really great that you had a very positive experience out of that.
yeah. I mean, it had its days. It was very hard work and long hours, but
Yeah.
I also think that business has changed even since then. Like the kind of things that people went through in the 90s, like you can't get away with
Hmm.
those things now. Like bosses have to be nicer. And so, I mean, like I said, my bosses were lovely, so I was very lucky. But it was a very good paying my dues sort of
Yeah.
3 years of my life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What were some of the challenges you faced early on in your career? I guess like after you left ICM.
I left ICM, didn't have a job. So,
Mm.
and I left because I was really burned out. And I happened to get into the Directors Guild training program. So I was pretty lucky because it's kind of hard to get into. And during that time, I was making films like with my brother. He was writing and I was directing because we really like to work together. But I think the biggest challenge I was facing at the time was that um, I was really gung ho and excited, and like very confident in my ability to be a director, even though looking back, like I'm like, wow, there's a lot I didn't know. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, you learn as you go. But I think the biggest thing I ran up against at the time was um, it just, there weren't opportunities for women, and especially not
Yeah.
for young women. Like, there just weren't any jobs. No, people would almost laugh at you when you would say you wanted to be a female director, like, because it just
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really a thing unless you were Penny Marshall, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It people, you had to kind of have like an in. So I found that a little bit, you know, disheartening. And
Yeah.
it took a while for that to change, like a very long while. So that was kind of, I think, my biggest obstacle
Mm.
for starting out.
Oh, boy, that is just the story of every major industry where women are trying to climb a ladder. Just misogyny, just left and right.
Yeah, I think Hollywood's, I think it's still incredibly behind. Like, you know, the balance of power has shifted finally, and it's starting to change, but it's like we were really behind. Like, I only really started working with female directors in like 2019 was when I started. I mean, I over the course of my almost 28 years of doing stuff on sets, working on
Hmm.
sets, I'd worked with three female directors, like
Mm.
out
Gosh.
of
Wow.
hundreds of directors, like three. So, and one or two of them were showrunners, so it was their show, so that's how they were able to do it. So it
Yeah.
was, there just weren't opportunities. It's changed a lot just in the last 5 years, so
Wow.
I'm
How
really
did
grateful
you
for that.
have the courage to stick in there and keep going,
uh,
facing.
no, it's like a combination of courage and maybe just stupidity. I don't know what it is. It's like a not quit gene that I have, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's, I think that's like bad to be that tenacious, but I mean, I really am passionate about making films and stories, and I do
Hmm.
really love being on set, and I love working with crew and actors, and so I think you know, I carved out like a niche of working with really, I went through kind of working with not great people, and then got to a point where I was working with great people. And then I realized, like, you know, I really do love it. Like, as
Mm.
hard as filmmaking is, and nobody thinks it's hard until you actually do it. And then you
Right.
realize it's actually really, really hard work. Um, but I love it. I love the storytelling element of it. I'm a very creative person.
Hmm.
It was really hard, and you know, I through the years, I think the hardest part was, you know, I never felt like I was as far as I wanted to be,
Right.
and especially like I had a child and then became a single mother, and so advancing my career became very difficult because I just had to focus on survival for a point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, fighting the whole "you're just a woman, I can't hire you" sort of thing got tiring. So I just, you know, you kind
Oof.
of just dig in and do what you can. But like I said, things have changed. My daughter's older, opportunities are available. And also, I just, you know, it's easier to just say, hey, I want to do this project. Like, I want to direct your project. And people don't, you know, now people are looking for women, which is like
Yeah.
beautiful. And they
Yeah.
want diversity, which is beautiful. And so, like, now there's a whole new round of voices in the industry.
Yeah.
And I think it's great and exciting. And I can't wait to see how that changes storytelling for the better, because I think it's
Yeah.
time.
I mean, just imagine all the projects that would have been made 5 years in the future from where we are now. If it's changed so much in the last 5, 10 years, it can only be exponentially better and way more inclusive than where we are.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I mean, when I was in college, my senior thesis was on African American filmmakers, and there were only at the time really like who were actively working. It was like Spike Lee, John Singleton, and the Hughes
Hmm.
brothers had like just made a movie. And I mean, like, Mario Van Peebles had done some things, but it's like literally of the working, it was so tiny. The pool was just itty bitty. And
Yeah.
so I did my thesis on that. And like, now there's so many amazing African American filmmakers and women,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
they weren't even, that wasn't even a thing back then in the 90s. Like
Yeah.
it just wasn't even, like an African American woman could never dream of being a film director and succeed at it in the 90s, but like it changed. And now we have all these amazingly talented women and men, and it's beautiful. And I love it. And it's, now you see stories about things we haven't heard, and that's what we need to hear. So
Mm,
the opportunities are opening, and it's really exciting time.
thank God for that.
Yeah.
So how did you actually get your um, directing break on Nickelodeon and for Netflix? How did that come about?
So I had done some directing, and I had, I had directed my short, and then I did some second unit, which isn't really like directing a full episode. It's just kind of like doing like little bits to fill in the
Mm-hmm.
show. So I really went to my showrunners. This was during the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I was really beyond ready to be directing, and I had asked on other shows, but it was just not. It was like the slates were always full, and it was always full of the same people. And this time
Mm,
I was working with really good showrunners. I really felt passionate about the show. And I went to my showrunners and I just asked, like I just said, I really want to direct.
don't ask, don't get.
Yeah. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
ask if you want something. So I did. And I could see like they were on my team, like
Yeah.
they were glad I asked, and they said, "We're really glad you asked." And then of course it has to go through like a chain of approvals, because like the network has to, like, they can't just let anybody. There's a lot of money riding in television and film, so you can't just like let anybody just do whatever they ask for. So
Right.
I did have some experience, so that helped. And also, I've been a first AD for 20 years. So I've been running sets forever and done big shows, um it's a different kind of show. It's a multi-camera sitcom, so it's a little different than what I like started doing, which is like
Mm-hmm.
movies and like single camera dramas and things like that. But this is like a comedy with like four cameras, and usually we had a live audience, but because of the pandemic we didn't. But it's a different kind of directing. So I had never done it before, but I felt good
Mm-hmm.
about it. And so they came back to me and they were like, the network approved you. And I was so excited. And I had the best crew, and the cast was so
Mm.
awesome and lovely. And I got a fun and really challenging script. And I had a blast. Like I put my heart and soul into it. I really had fun. The whole crew, always steps up because it's such a team effort. It's not like a one person thing, but
Yeah.
I'm really proud of how it turned out, and I had fun. And then after that, like, the network was great, and the showrunners were great and gave me more episodes. So that was really wonderful.
That's
And
amazing, Natalie.
yeah, great.
So in terms of like multi-camera and single camera, so it's literally just like you said, like one show has or your show has multiple cameras, so you're basically running all the shots that are being shot through each camera versus just one camera. And I assume multi-camera shoots faster because you have more cameras. Is that more or
Yes,
less
it
it?
shoots a lot faster. In fact, I think it's almost harder to direct because you shoot so much in a day. Like you're shooting, like single camera, you usually have two cameras, but you have a four-walled set, and you shoot a scene and you have two cameras maybe looking one direction, and then you relight everything, and then you move the camera and you reshoot, so you have time.
Mm-hmm.
With a multi-camera and with single camera, you're shooting all week, right? Like you're just shooting. You like rehearse the
Yeah.
scene and then you shoot it. With multi-camera, it's a week-long process to shoot a show, but you do 3 days of like a table read and rehearsals for three
Mm-hmm.
days and then
Mm-hmm.
um And then you do what are called run throughs, which is like a live performance, almost like a play. And so the writers can rewrite. And then you have Thursday and Friday to shoot it. So you shoot an entire episode of TV in 2 days. And if you're doing a
Wow.
live audience, it's really like a very limited time, like usually like 3 to 5 hours, right, of shooting. So you're shooting like huge amounts of script in a short amount of time. So you have to go really fast.
Yeah.
And you have to look at a monitor with all the cameras. So on that show, we had 5 cameras. So I had 5 cameras, and you're constantly just making sure you get everything. And you can't do a lot of takes. And it's more like a dance. Like, it's just the cameras are always moving, and there's a lot of things you have to think about. So it's definitely a completely different kind of experience, but the energy of it's really fun.
Yeah.
And
So would that
really,
be, I guess, comparable to like working on a feature film versus a multicam show? Like feature films, are those just mostly one camera shows or one camera
so a
productions?
feature is definitely like a single camera, like always going to be a single camera. So, and when you say single camera, but you can still have like 15 cameras shooting one shot, but it would still be considered single camera, because of the style of shooting is like you shoot a shot and then you move on to a different setup and you shoot another shot. Whereas like multi-camera is more designed to be like a Big Bang Theory, or like Two and a Half Men, where you're in front of an audience and you perform a scene, and you can shoot the whole scene. Like, you could do like 3 takes and like the whole scene's done, right? And you've shot everything you need to shoot.
A lot less of that hurry up and wait.
Yeah, there's no like, you're not waiting to light for like half an hour. Like, everything's lit. It's like that. It's like a play, but with TV cameras, basically. So it's definitely a different vibe. And I do love both. Like, by the way, they're both fun, but they're just different. Just different.
Yeah. And what does directing second unit mean for those who don't know?
I mean, on that show, I did everything from like little tiny inserts of like, CSI was very science based. So it was like, look at this bullet fragment. And then you would like zoom in and see bullets, and you would have to see, like certain bits of evidence. So you've got like maybe a really special tight lens on. So like the regular shooting crew doesn't have time to do all that, because it's time intensive, and tight lenses can require some difficult things. Also, there were like a lot of visual effects. That show was kind of very successful in making it cool, right? Like, you would do a shot where you would go inside somebody's body. So like, we worked with the visual effects team to kind of like do those neat shots that made that show very well known and popular. But then there would be things like the showrunner would watch the show and felt like pieces were missing, or wanted to recast somebody, or wanted to add a story beat, or the episode wasn't long enough, so you'd have to add something in. So there would be like fill-in scenes. So like sometimes I would get to shoot, you shoot like, I got to do some fun, like good dream sequences with like one of the lead actresses where she's kind of having a nightmare, or like a stunt shoot where somebody's getting shot on a boat, or a girl's getting like rocks thrown at her, like, so things like that, people getting in car accidents, some stunts. Some of the stunt stuff is really fun. So it's sort of like filling in the pieces. So you're not directing the whole episode, but your footage fits in with the director's, and you want it to be as seamless as possible. So it looks like it was all done, at the same time. So it was challenging and fun, and I, had a really nice crew. So it was good. I just, I did murder television for like 14 years. So it gets a little tiring.
Dark.
Yeah. So I was ready to go to comedy, like good time. I just wanted to laugh like all the time.
Did you have nightmares based on things you were seeing on set?
My office is like right next to the editor's room. So you would hear people getting like murdered like over and over and over and over again. And after a while, you're like, I don't think I want to hear this anymore. Like, it's a lot. I mean, it was a really great show, and I really love the people. Super, super lucky that I got on a show that ran so long. But yeah, it was good to move to comedy. I'm
Yeah,
really happy.
it
So
sounded.
yeah,
So you've been in this Hollywood game for what, 20 years now?
30. I know. Yeah, I
Wow.
moved. I did my first internship in '95, so 29 years. Yeah, 29 years.
Wow. Damn.
It's pretty nuts.
I'll have you back on your 30th anniversary.
I know it's coming soon.
So what drives you to keep at it? Is it you know, your love of storytelling, and I guess, the opportunities that are opening up more, because it's a long time to be in this business and to be in LA
It
and
is.
to still be like such a nice person and,
Aw,
not jaded and want to carry out a CSI type plot on someone.
right. I still have those moments of jaded, but no, I think it is the love of storytelling and also the camaraderie with the cast and crew. I think, I worked in an office for 3 years, like in a cubicle, and then I was in an office and the phone ringing all the time. And like, I just couldn't do it. Like it hurt my soul. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're a creative person, like there's something really beautiful about being able to like go and work on a set every day where it's different every day. I mean, sometimes it's the same, right? But it's different. You're moving around. It's a little bit of a traveling circus. Like
Mm-hmm.
and when you finish a show, like you're never going to see those same exact people again. Like usually, I mean, CSI was like with the same crew for many years, but like usually you go from show to show and it's like, it's a different mix of people. And so you meet new folks and
Keeps it
new,
very interesting.
yeah. So it's always, I don't know, there's something in it that's just like the friendships you develop are beautiful. And then at the same time, like to be able to like creative problem solve, like how to shoot things, because it can be challenging, and
Mm-hmm.
to really figure out how to bring a writer's words to the screen and to also, write my own things and bring them to life. So I don't know, I just really
Yeah.
love it. I've always loved that. And I try to not let all the other negative things about the business like way too heavy. I mean, I've had hard years. I think we all have. There's been a strike here. It's been really hard for a lot of people, but I mean, ultimately all of us want to get back together and work and
Yeah.
you sometimes get to work on projects that you're like insanely proud of. And I've been lucky. I've had a lot of those. Some like that were just so good, that you're like, I can't believe I'm this lucky.
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
I think for me, it's that.
Yeah.
It's that. And I don't know what the heck else I'm gonna go do. Like, what skills? My skills, like, I have a lot of skills, but I don't know who's gonna like. It's like we're members of a traveling circus. Like almost. It's
Well, you
you know
could start a new circus. There you go.
yeah. Start a new circus.
What's something about being a director that people don't know that you wish they did?
It's really a lot harder than you think it is. I think
I guess the perception is people think that you're just standing around telling people to stand here, stand there, give me more tears,
yeah.
laugh,
I
or
think
whatever.
Well, I'm going to say this. There are a lot of directors who, especially people who maybe like do something else for a living and then they kind of come in and do it where it's like, I don't think they realize they don't know what they don't know. And so they have like a huge amount of help, right? Like from the crew, because
Mm-hmm.
the crew really is the champion of everything. They do everything, right? And even if you are not a good director, the crew will really prop you up. And um, so like when people come in and like maybe it's an actor who's never directed, um, and some of them are amazing, but some don't really know like everything that goes into it. So they lean really heavily on their AD team and their crew. Um, And so then once they like finish an episode, they realize like how hard it is, like how much actually goes into it. And for me, it's like there's an insane amount of prep and things you have to think about. I mean, you have to think about every little thing really that goes into it, and you have time constraints and money constraints. So I know it seems glamorous, but I think what people don't realize is that like there's a lot weighing on being a director.
There's a lot that goes on before people see the premiere.
Yeah, I mean there really is. I mean, and it's just a lot of pressure on one person's shoulders, and fortunately they have a lot of great people around them. But yeah, I don't think people realize how much a director actually does.
And tell me, what are you most proud of in your career?
I think I'm most proud of not giving up. I probably could have and should have a million times over. I definitely went through some really rough times, like where the industry was not great, or I had things happen to me, and I won't even get into them because some of them were awful, but I think everyone goes through it, where it's like maybe somebody really does something terrible to you, or a producer's really awful. There are people who backstab and do rough things to get ahead and are happy to step on you on the way up. But for me, like I've always stayed true to who I am, and just I refuse to be like one of those people. I'm going to stay who I am, and I'm going to just keep going, and I want to keep making more projects. I have some things coming up, so I'm excited, and I just, for me, I think it's like I'm proud of the things I've made, all of those, but I think I'm most proud of just being tenacious and not giving it up when it was really like, it seemed like the best option was to give up, but I still kept going. So,
and we're all glad you did.
Thank you.
What are you reading right now?
Oh my goodness. I'm reading a cool book called The Bird Tribes. It's like about Iroquois Indians and Native Americans, because there's a project that I'm working on that has to do with like First Nations people up in Canada. And I like to read like multiple books. But I just downloaded the last Michael Connelly book. So I'm excited to read that because he's like my favorite writer. He did all the Bosch and Lincoln Lawyer books, and he's just so good. So those are the two I've got going right now. And I love to read like as much as I possibly can.
Speaking of reading, how was it working with your brother writing Infinite?
It was super fun. I love working with my brother, Doug. He's really a great writer, and we work well together. We live in a duplex together. So he lives upstairs with his family, and I live downstairs with my daughter. And so we're always close, and we love to, I don't know, he's funny and fun, and he has great ideas. So it's been great. It was a cool project because we wrote it as a script together. It was a really fun idea. And then my brother's also a professional photographer, and he shoots a lot for like different magazines. And we literally did photo shoots with actors. Like we had a bunch of friends and actor friends, and sometimes we would cast some extras, and we shot photographs. Thousands of photographs. And then we had an artist, this really cool guy, Michael Metcalf. He turned them into a comic book. So he would take the images and then like kind of paint over them and make them into art. So it's like over 300 pages. It's like a very long graphic novel, but I'm very proud of it. It was really fun to do too. So
and it's just like so different from your day-to-day directing.
Yes, it's very different. But it's still storytelling, which is really cool. I mean, I would love to make it into a movie. That's like the ultimate goal. But right now, the graphic novel took some time, so that was a good start.
Well, you'll get there. You'll get there. And my last question for you, Natalie, is what piece of music inspires you?
Like one piece or what kind of genre?
I guess that's for you to interpret.
I mean, I have to say I love almost all music. So I can't really narrow it down. Like I love a lot of different artists and it kind of depends on the mood that I'm in.
Yeah.
You know, like I can turn on like jazz in the mornings and just like let it like help me meditate in the mornings. And then like, you know, I listen to some Foo Fighters or Johnny Cash. Like I'm all over the place with what I love. But I think music is one of the most enjoyable parts of life. And it's, you know, for me, like I always, songs like remind me of different little moments in my life. And so like you hear a song and it brings you like to a memory, you know, of like, oh yeah, I remember Crazy in Love by Beyonce. I was at a wedding with Trinette and Anne and, you know, so those moments that are like super special. So for me, I think I can't pick one genre. I just would say music, it like really makes my soul happy. And when I made my first short film and I did the actual, I had a friend, Steve Ridley, did the score for it. We had a 40-piece orchestra. And we were at Capitol Records in like the Frank Sinatra studio. And I had been working all night, like on a CSI shoot. And I went in and like, I just sat and I listened to them do the score for the film. It was like a 25-minute movie. And I like, it was like tears were streaming down my face because like the music brings this whole thing to life, right? Like music somehow, it takes like this rough cut film and makes it beautiful. So like
it gives it a soul.
It gives it a soul, right? So you're like, you know, like John Williams, like everybody loves that guy because every movie that he's ever scored, like he's the one who gives you the most feeling, I think. I mean, the films are awesome, but for me, I think music is one of the most important parts of life and important in filmmaking as well.
I would agree. Well, thank you so much, Natalie, for taking time and coming on my podcast and being indoors from the rain. So I'm glad I gave you something to do.
Thank you.
Since you can't go outside.
Can't leave my house. It's fairly dangerous out there. So, but thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Well, stay safe. And for all of you listening, thank you for listening to another episode of My Time, My Life. And until next time, take care. Bye. My Time, My Life with Trinette Faint is a Floor 51 production.